So it's not just that Helen is doing the Foucauldian madness and power stuff, using the Substack technology that she objects to, when her criticism of Musk is that he's not an admirable figure, when she will hide from the people who she formerly claimed to support. So again, this is a fairly straightforward logical inference on a where are we? Sorry, the ambulances are quite loud. It's a straightforward inference for Deckard as he walks around Edinburgh. If you want to solve crime, I mean, this is a pretty good place to do it. So it's actually GDPR compliant. You can walk around, sort of ramble in the street and talk in a general sense. If nobody recognises you, knows who you are, you can get away with that kind of stuff because you can just talk it out, can't you? So if Larry stabbed Bob, then this means nothing to anybody. We've got all these screens in our pocket and various people stabbing each other all over the place, so this is not actually a novelty in the modern world. So you can think about what's happened in terms of analysing footage and things, the sort of thing that you'd need to do to be a criminal defence solicitor, except that the old man would have come into a world where a computer can probably analyse everything that's happening here, spot everybody breaking the law, and the old man would have been fairly redundant. So in terms of getting into a career of law, a legal career via that path, it would probably be a lot more difficult for Junior, particularly when the technology required to actually do that was effectively gate-kept. So the hilarious lack of access to money thing, which of course would have gone across the criminal threshold in the modern world, would have kept one away from technology for a point. But of course, because technology, of course, for all of us was a route out, that never worked. So you've got the generation who were used to breaking into servers just naturally. You're sitting there with somebody else's business assets from childhood. You actually are their IT guy because you're running it for them. This is one of these sort of familial arrangements in a family business sense. But you have total freedom with these machines. So this starts with the spectrum and goes through to the internet era where you've got a completely unregulated and monitored internet connection. I believe at one point, I forget who it was Demon or something, locked it out because I tried to break into something, I can't quite remember, it was many years ago. But you've grown up with the security apparatus being non-existent effectively. It was sort of England via the tubes. But of course, because as the brain bath, I think in 2020, took us from the sort of psychopathic managerial state environment into back after probably since I was actually about 9, into an environment with a door where wasn't going to be physically assaulted, wasn't going to be attacked by morons, that we had eventually control over the departments. You could get back to doing quality casework. Because as soon as you try to actually do it, you realise that you couldn't do it because of the way the department was run, and you realise that to resolve the matters in the department, you have to physically get out because some of these people were so addicted to the patronage network that they would get further violent once you started to report on what they were happening, which of course did, and is still going on. So we've gone from, against the witness statement, attempted stabbing at the back of my property, to here because I'm not a complete idiot. But the people I've encountered along the way have been, unfortunately, complete idiots and dishonest to boot. I'm just surprised that when I'm on my evening walk, it does actually include people who have been involved in the evergreen stuff. So what's again mind-blowing is Helen, of course, made her reputation in 2020 by being on this sort of Nainer-esque or Nainer's documentary in Portland, speaking to Lindsay and these kind of people. But when the chips are down and it is, it is looking at sort of a Birmingham version of Lebanon, which is now hiding. It's not great, really. It doesn't tell you where we're at in terms of the country. But even Kaufman, if Kaufman should know that the strategy is just always going to move the ball. So if the ball at this point is national security, then again, why is Kaufman bumbling around at a university, and why are people like this not being recruited by the security services? So, you don't have to be terribly intelligent to make these kind of inferences. You have to ask the state, well, who is overseeing security? Okay, well, it's Burnham. Is Burnham credible? Well, no. But the sinister bit is again the media blackout. So I don't know. It's where even are we? Friday, Saturday. I've lost track of time. But even Blackpool can't get information. The ombudsman's behaving dishonestly. All these supposedly serious people and serious professional bodies who think that I'm so terrifying that I can't appear via video link. But north of the border, people don't appear to be that concerned, I've got to say. You can sort of come out on an evening's walk and nothing much changes. So it really is sort of a very scary situation in terms of basic security. I was saying to my friend the other evening, if you have friends or family, I just get your assets out of there. So mine are effectively stuck. We probably could do an asset transfer, sell them by various means. The bank, I'm sure, will take it on. But just in a practical sense, how do you actually value the assets, and how would you instruct a solicitor? What conversation would you have at this point, which doesn't involve, okay, well, I'd like to sell this, but while we're doing this, can you actually go and get an intermediary between us and the managing director? This is not an unreasonable request in terms of getting a sale, and the buyer may want to have that kind of reassurance as well. What even is the date? We're here in August now, aren't we? So end of November till August. And Birmingham has to calculate damages, which are clearly going to be due for anyone who isn't a complete idiot. I'm sure Gentieri has done a complete case review along with the work we did on the Birmingham's equal pay liability. So the courts wanted to do this ridiculous grading scheme. Went in to help out with that. Absent, by the way, is another huge man. So I won't say his name on this recording, but he was another compliance officer. This gigantic bloke who would break chairs he was so huge, and spent his life heavy lifting, shall we say. And he was deferring to these utter cretins in that department who had no business instructing a man like that, and clearly held his career back as well, by the way, probably because of his immutable characteristics. Big, scary is an immutable characteristic, I think, in that department. The people in charge couldn't deal with that kind of stuff. So just in terms of employment law, you'd think they'd go and speak to my colleagues to try and have a chat with them and look at damages, but they can't do that either, or can they? It's all just such a mess. But yes, if you can, if anyone in the country wants to go and finish the recording off, if you can find me a solicitor who is honest, just honest and wants money, we'll take two have to be together, but qualified solicitor, honest, likes money, G-Orwell 8484 at protonmail.com. But while you're doing that, I mean, if you're not a solicitor and you just want to report crime in Birmingham, there's a really great place to do it, which is here. So your evidence can be picked apart via various trained people in the city of Edinburgh. There's a body part museum around the corner. We've got highly intelligent people, I've got to say. The level of capability is well above what exists south of the border. So if you want to come here as a respite from Birmingham, all the spillover, all these sort of antics as the British state effectively collapses, this is probably relatively safe.
Oh, that's cute. Guys, you don't have to walk us down. You can tell now. What?
And for reference, by the way, for the clinical record, the Bruce banner only arrived by post today, so I haven't really had a chance to use it properly yet. This is only on 180 degrees, and I am just incredibly angry still. Again, it is very nice to be here, but we are here because they have destroyed my home. No sane person would go back to a place where your options are be in a property where there's been a stabbing, go into a property where there is someone who's clearly going to keep attacking you, or go into a building where, again, there's been a sort of Maoist terror and the commissioners have buggered off. It is, again, the case that you could return and do the job. Again, it is literally a case of turning on a laptop, but obviously we're not going to do it until we've got the all clear. That clearly can't happen because of the total, just the attitude. The sort of, oh, we'll have a laugh and a giggle, then run giggling away into the hedgerows when things go wrong. Has really been our downfall, because we haven't actually taken things seriously. If we'd actually been paying attention to what had been happening in the city, we probably could have been more serious or organised, and got this sorted out several years ago. But unfortunately now, where we are, we've got this dreadful mess to try and clear up. But again, you do have to think that you can sort things out sensibly in a European sense. So I think one of the ones we discussed earlier was the Indian subcontinent. So it's a plating strategy, so you can make this kind of arguments and say, well, it's obvious that in the polis of Birmingham, Joanne Roney is offering the magic beans to everybody. So it's a question of who's the dumbest. Well, if you defer to Spengler, well, that's an easy one to make, isn't it? That's not going to be the case. And you can make a sensible discussion about things with Modi and say, well, just based on numbers, okay, we can have some kind of sensible population transfer, but that can be time limited, that kind of stuff. All this stuff can be worked out. You can have sensible intermediaries, but it does work on the fundamental basis that the British Constitution is based on your reputation. So if you are someone who's ultimately going to hide, well, are you really going to be capable of carrying it all the way? And I'm afraid the king is currently hiding from or going along with the Islamic takeover of Birmingham. This is just a logical and factual statement. His subject isn't. His subject arguably has more of a right to the throne than he does, being a Celt, Anglo-Saxon Protestant who was won in 1984, has a British military history, and various other aspects which will make him a better king than Charles. It's just at the moment we can't actually ask him about his ethical system, because petitioning the king appears to be impossible, and Helen Pluckrose think that the idea of speaking to the king, given our constitutional arrangement, is so absurd that I'm too scary to respond to, and she can't petition him or get me a solicitor either. So that's the inference, isn't it? An actual writer can't get me a solicitor. A writer can't get me a solicitor. In fact, yeah, one writer, one children's publisher. That's quite impressive. Yeah.